know for a fact, but I doubt it. The task force, I know secondhand, but I believe that they receive funding from CDC, but as far as I know, not from companies.
Dr. Plotkin, I'm going to hand you what's marked as plaintiff exhibit 3.
Yes, so?
Okay. This is a fact.
Oh, I see, yes, where it says funders.
Okay. Does this...
Well, I stand corrected, so the task force then does receive funding from companies. However, I don't see that has any bearing on its work for Voices for Vaccines.
Okay. Did you get the email?
Where is that in the... Am I looking at the same exhibit you guys are?
You should have received deposition exhibit 3.
And it's a page from the Lancet?
No. Number 80. No, that's the wrong one.
Give me 1 second, sorry.
All right.
No. Hold on. Just type task force. Can you search? Start task. Open that one? No. No. Just under the web page. Just search for that web page on the internet.
Remove your hand from your face when you're testifying.
About us. No. Counsel?
Yes?
It's what it is a it's a fact sheet printed out from the Task Force for Global Health, and on the left side it just shows the donors. Dr. Plotkin's already, he's already. I'm just going to ask him to read the donors, and that's it. Can I assume?
All right.
Okay. So does this show that the Task Force for Global Health received funding from GSK?
Yes, it does, but I want to repeat that the Voices for Vaccines has studiously avoided receiving funding from any company, and the fact that the task force is doing its finances was only a matter of convenience and an offer from Dr. Hinman that they would do that, and because they have experience with filing tax returns, etc. And I do not believe, and I strongly do not believe, that any of the funding to the task force passes to Voices for Vaccines.
Does the Task Force for Global Health receive funding from Merck?
Yes.
And from Pfizer?
Apparently, yes.
Okay. So the Task Force for Global Health receives funding from pharmaceutical companies, and at the least, I'm understanding from you, provides some kind of administrative support services to the Voices for Vaccines, correct?
Correct.
And one of the founding voices to create that organization was yourself, correct?
I was one of those who suggested it, yes.
And you receive remuneration from pharmaceutical companies, correct?
I do, yes.
Okay. Does anybody out that works for Voices for Vaccines strike that? Okay. That's the 3. Okay, so going back to what we were discussing, I had asked you earlier, has any educational or not-for-profit institution in which you have been involved received funding from Sanofi? And you indicated that would be difficult to answer. Can you tell me, but you did indicate to me, and correct me if I say anything that I don't want to misspeak, but you indicated there are some groups that don't receive any funding from pharmaceutical companies, correct? And you mentioned Voices
Correct.
for Vaccines as the main
Yes.
one. Okay. Is there any other education or nonprofit institution in which you've been affiliated that you're aware of that does not and has not received funding from any vaccine company?
Well, I certainly advise the Gates Foundation. I advise the National Institutes of Health. I think those are the major institutions that are not in the business of developing vaccines, and they do not receive funding from companies.
Does the NIH hold any patents on any vaccine-related technology?
I believe they do. Yes.
Do they receive royalties from those patents?
I imagine they do. Yes.
To your knowledge, you're not aware of whether any of the other educational non-for-profit institutions outside of Voices for Vaccines, as you've said, Gates Foundation or NIH, that don't receive any money from any of the pharmaceutical companies?
I'm not sure I can answer that question categorically, but
Just based on your knowledge. I mean, either you know, if you don't know, then
I'm sure there are organizations that are not funded by industry, but whether I'm trying to think of ones that I've advised over the years. Well, the Sabin Foundation, I'm not sure whether they receive funding from industry or not, but I don't normally inquire of the organizations that I advise where their funding comes from.
have you ever worked on developing a vaccine that was eventually used by the public?
Yes.
Okay. Which ones?
Let's see. Well, rubella, rotavirus, rabies, and I've made contributions here and there to anthrax, cytomegalovirus, varicella. That's all I can remember at the moment.
Okay. The varicella vaccine, you're talking about the Varivax?
Yeah.
Okay. When you say you contributed to it, how did you contribute to the development of varicella?
Essentially by showing how it could be used and demonstrating that it was safe and effective.
Did you work directly with Merck on that?
I don't recall whether it was directly with Merck or not. Certainly it was the vaccine produced by Merck, but whether I don't recall that they actually funded my studies of varicella vaccine, but they were the producers of the vaccine, certainly.
Where were you working when you did this work?
At Children's Hospital of Philadelphia.
Did Children's Hospital ever acquire any intellectual property rights in what was
From
developed?
varicella, no.
No. Have you developed or been part in any way in the development of any vaccine from which you have received any payment, revenue, or income related to the sale of that vaccine?
Yes, although I should stipulate that all of the patents on vaccines that I've developed have been taken out by the institutions for which I was working, and that they gave me, I stress that it was not a requirement, but they gave me part of the profits deriving from the patents.
Okay, which are those?
Sorry?
Which vaccines are those?
Mainly rubella, rotavirus, and rabies.
And the rubella vaccine that you developed is currently used as part of the MMR vaccine?
Correct.
Okay. And this is one of the vaccines you believe Faith's pediatrician should purchase and administer to her?
Absolutely.
Okay. What is the total amount of payments in any form you have directly or indirectly received from the sale of the rubella vaccine?
Oh. I cannot give you a figure. I would say that I do not doubt, but again, I'd have to ask my wife. I do not doubt that they were substantial amounts of money, and similarly for rotavirus and rabies.
Okay. Was it in the millions of dollars? For rubella, just rubella?
I don't think so. Well, that's all I can say. I don't think so.
Okay. Are you in the possession of documents that would illuminate how much you've received in payments from the sale of the rubella vaccine?
Probably. I hope they have been retained. I don't know, but I imagine.
Okay. And do you continue to receive any payments from the sale or royalties or any other remuneration from the sale of the rubella vaccine?
Currently, I don't think so.
Okay. When did it cease?
Oh, Jesus. I couldn't tell you exactly. Sometime during this century, I don't know. You know, if I had thought that this was going to be about my finances, I would have had my wife come along, because I don't follow these things, and certainly what I've done has not been based on what remuneration I could receive from the work that I've done. So if you want financial details, I will have to collect them in some other form. But
how do you think your wife would feel of you offering her up for a deposition?
I don't think she would like it very much.
Right. It wasn't a serious question. Okay. So, but I'll request those documents. Now, do you have, you said that you're not sure whether it was in the millions of dollars that you've received from the sale of rubella, correct?
Correct.
But it could have been?
I doubt it, but it could have been. I don't think so.
Who provided you those payments?
The Wistar Institute.
Okay. Did it come from any other source other than Wistar?
I don't think so, because the Wistar holds the patent.
Okay. Were you listed as one of the patent,
One of the inventors?
one of the inventors?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. But but Windstar was the assignee, is that right?
Yes,
And so they received they're the ones who gave the license to Merck.
yes, yes.
So Merck would pay Wistar, and then Wistar would remit some of that to you. Is that correct?
That's correct. I'm trying to recall whether Children's Hospital was involved. I don't think so at that point, because that was many years ago.
Okay. And you indicated that you've also developed the rotavirus vaccine earlier. I believe you said it was Rototech?
Yes,
Okay. And I think you said earlier that's currently one of 2 rotavirus vaccines
Yes.
currently on the market in the U.S.? Okay. And you obtained a patent for Rototech?
Wistar and Children's Hospital developed patents.
Okay. Who was listed as the inventor? Or co-inventors?
Myself, Paul Offit, and Fred Clark.
Okay. And who were the assignees of the patent for Rototech?
The assignees, you mean who used the...
Well, when you file the patent, there's usually an inventor listed, and then there's who the patent's assigned to.
Well, the patents were taken out by Wistar and Children's Hospital, if that's what you mean.
Okay. And so they were the ones who had the rights to the patent?
Yes.
Okay. How much remuneration to date have you received from sales of Rototech?
I couldn't tell you exactly, but it's been a considerable amount.
Okay. Has it been in the millions?
I hesitate to say exactly. It could be, but I really do not know.
You were entitled. So you indicated that Children's Hospital, Philadelphia, is that sometimes referred to as CHOP?
Yes.
Okay. CHOP was entitled to receive revenue from the sale of Rototech?
Yes.
Okay. And what portion from the sale of Rototech was CHOP entitled to?
Well, as I understand it, 50%.
Okay. And what percent of that 50 were you entitled to?
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know how much revenue CHOP received from the sale of Rototech?
I do not.
Okay. Did there ever come a time where CHOP sold its interest in the Rototech virus vaccine?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Do you remember how much approximately it was sold for?
No.
Exhibit 10. I'm going to hand you what is being marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 4. This is a press release from Royalty Pharma. And the title of the press release is Royalty Pharma Acquires Royalty Interest in Rototech from the Children's Hospital Foundation for $182 million.
Ms. Newsma, you should have that in just 1 second.
Okay. Looking at exhibit number 4, does that refresh your recollection of how much CHOP sold its interest in Rototech for in 2008?
Assuming it's correct, yes.
Does that sound about right?
I have no idea, but presumably it's correct.
Do you have any reason to doubt the authenticity of this press release?
No.
Do you have any reason to doubt that CHOP sold its Rototech interest in 2008 for $182 million?
I have no reason to doubt it.
Did you receive a portion of those proceeds?
I believe so, yes.
And what was that amount?
I could not tell you precisely. I really can't. I don't do these things for the money, and although it's gratifying to receive monetary awards, I don't personally keep track of it. And again, if I had realized this was going to be the tone of this deposition, I would have asked my wife to come along.
You're here today opining that Faith should receive vaccines that are made by the big 4 pharmaceutical companies, correct?
I am, yes.
Okay. And you didn't anticipate that your financial dealings with those companies would be relevant to that issue?
I guess, no, I did not perceive that that was relevant to my opinion as to whether a child should receive vaccines. Vaccines have to be made by somebody, and of course, in this world, they're made by pharmaceutical companies who make profits on vaccines. And the fact that they make profits on vaccines has no bearing on whether those vaccines are good for a child or not.
So you think the fact that pharmaceutical companies make money on vaccines doesn't bias how they approach the promotion of their own products?
I imagine it biases them in favor of vaccines, but so does most of the scientific world.
Are you saying most of the scientific world is biased because of financial
No, I'm
conflicts and
saying
interest?
that most of the scientific world believes that vaccines protect children against serious diseases.
Do you have a peer-reviewed study that actually supports what you just said?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, good. We'll make a demand for that too.
Well, you can certainly buy a copy of the vaccines textbook, which contains thousands of references showing that vaccines work and are safe.
Okay. So, from the $182 million sale to CHOP, that CHOP made to Royalty Pharma, do you believe that you received more or less than $1 million?
I could have received more than $1 million. I don't have an exact figure.
You stated earlier that your co-inventor on this patent was Paul Offit.
Yes.
Okay. Were you entitled to similar remuneration as he was?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware that he has stated publicly how much he's received from that sale?
I'm not aware that he has.
Okay. If I told you he said that he received approximately $6 million, would that would that help you recall how much you received?
Not really, but I believe whatever Paul has said, I'm sure is correct.
Okay. So, is $6 million a lot of money in your opinion?
Yes.
Okay. If you received $6 million, you think you'd remember?
Actually, Counselor, no. I hesitate to say this because it sounds as if I'm some sort of idiot, but I really do not follow what income I get. I have no doubt that it was a lot of money, but I cannot give you an exact figure. I actually do not read my own tax returns. I say that in complete honesty.
How about the Wistar Institute? I believe you stated earlier they also were held to intellectual property on Rototech, correct?
Yes,
Did there ever come a time, and you receive a portion of the proceeds that Winstar receives, correct?
yes.
And you continue to receive payments from Winstar for the sale of Rototech?
I don't think I've received anything in the last couple of years, but I have in the past.
Okay. How much approximately have you received in the past?
I don't remember.
Okay. Do you recall Wistar selling a portion of its royalty interest to Rototech?
I believe they have.
Okay. Do you remember approximately how much?
No.
I'm going to hand you what's in Marcus Plaintiff's Exhibit 5. It's a PR Newswire article. Can you read the title, please?
The Wistar Institute sells partial royalty interest in Merck's Rototech to the Paul Royalty Fund.
Okay. Does that refresh your recollection of how much they sold their royalty interest?
No.
Okay.
Ms. Newsma, did you receive Exhibit 5?
I did. I believe it's Exhibit 5. I haven't. Yep, just got it.
Thank you.
Can you please read the first sentence of the article, Dr. Plotkin?
The Wistar Institute today announced it has sold a portion of its anticipated worldwide royalty revenues from Rototech to an affiliate of the Paul Royalty Fund for $45 million.
Does that refresh your recollection of how much they received for selling a portion of their interest in Rototech?
I know that they sold it. I don't have in my head how much they sold it for, but I presume this is correct.
Okay. The Winstar Institute is entitled to what percentage of the sales from the Rototech?
I do not know.
Okay. And you, from this $45 million sale, any recollection of all of how much you received?
No recollection. I'm sure I received some.
Do you think it was sizable?
I think it was probably sizable, yes.
More than a few $100,000?
I think so. I don't have a figure in my head.
You have documents that would indicate how much you received?
I would imagine so, yes.
Make a request for those as well. Okay. Are you familiar with the Immunization Action Coalition?
Yes.
Okay. What is your understanding of what this group does?
They promote vaccination through education and emails and meetings.
Okay. Would you say it's one of the main advocacy groups for vaccines in this country?
I think it's an important one, yes.
Okay. Does it receive funding from pharmaceutical companies?
I think so. I'm not certain. I don't know exactly where their financing comes from, but I think they very well may.
Okay. I'm going to hand you what's in Marcus Plaintiff's Exhibit 6. It's a printout from the Immunization Action Coalition webpage showing their funding for 2017. You can kindly take a look at that in the section that says, that lists the pharma company donors. Okay. Are any of the companies listed there vaccine manufacturer or trying to develop vaccines?
Yes.
Which ones?
AstraZeneca, Glaxo, Merck, Pfizer, Sanofi, Seqirus.
So all of them.
Yes.
Ms. Newsmont, can you confirm you received Exhibit 6?
Haven't gotten it yet, but I should have it in just a second. Got it.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you know approximately what % of Immunization Action Coalition's funding comes from those pharmaceutical companies?
No idea.
Okay. Can you name me a major medical group such as the American Academy of Pediatrics or similar that you know does not receive any funding from any pharmaceutical company?
Well, inasmuch as I do not know what organizations receive what funding, I really can't answer that question.
Sitting here today, you don't know of one.
I don't know what funding, for example, AAP receives from manufacturers, no.
Okay. So sitting here today, you're not aware of any medical group that does not receive any support from pharmaceutical companies, correct?
I am not aware of the funding of medical organizations and whether or not they receive funding from pharmaceutical companies.
Okay. So just to recap, I think it would be correct to say that you've received in total from the companies that develop or manufacture vaccines, payments or remuneration at least in the amount of a few $1 million, correct?
I think it's correct to say that since I left Children's Hospital in the 1990s, I have received considerable funding for my work in developing vaccines and in advising companies how to develop vaccines. And I have also given advice freely to organizations that could not pay me because I believe that vaccines are important to the health of children and adults.
So the answer is yes.
The answer is yes, but I wish to say very clearly that none of the things that I have done have been done with the objective of gaining money. It has been my fortune that I have been rewarded financially for the work that I've done, but none of the things that I've done have been done for financial gain. And I resent very much the line of questioning that suggests that what I believe and what I've done have been done for financial reasons.
Nobody's suggesting that, Dr. Plotkin. I'm just asking you.
Baloney, you are suggesting that.
Well, that's You're suggesting that. Dr. Plotkin, so you indicated that a lot of the remuneration you received is from the 1990s. Have you received any funding from the big four pharma companies or their predecessors before 1990?
I would say probably not. It's very hard to remember that far back, but certainly not any substantial funding. I may have received honoraria for attending meetings in those days, but certainly nothing considerable. At that point, I was working at the University of Pennsylvania in the Children's Hospital and the Wistar Institute, and was, of course, paid by those entities.
Could you read the last answer back for me, please?
Answer, I would say probably not. You know, it's very hard to remember that far back, but certainly not any substantial funding. I may have received honorary for attending meetings in those days, but certainly nothing considerable. At that point, I was working at the University of Pennsylvania and the Children's Hospital and the Wistar Institute, and was of course paid by those entities.
Okay. Did you receive any funding from any pharmaceutical company related to the development of vaccines before 1990?
I don't recall receiving any funding for the development of rubella vaccine before it was licensed, and then funding passed through Wistar. As far as rotavirus is concerned, I did have grants, not personal money, but grants for rotavirus development from Sanofi. And I had no funding for rabies. That's as much as I can recall.
Okay. But you indicated that you didn't get funding for the work on the rubella vaccine, right?
I don't believe I had any funding until it was eventually licensed by Merck.
And when was that?
That was about 1970, early 70s.
So from the early 70s, you were receiving funding, you're saying, from Merck related to rubella?
No, Wistar was receiving
Wistar
funding.
from Merck.
Yes.
Got it. But before that,
The store's got to stay shut today.
The Merck did not fund the development of rubella vaccine until it was licensed.
73, it's going to be 7.
Ms. Newsma, you should have Exhibit 7.
I'm going to hand you, Dr. Plotkin, what's marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 7.
Just got it.
Okay. Can you read the title of the article, please?
Attenuation of RA27.3 rubella virus and WI38 human diploid cells.
And who's the first listed author?
I am.
Okay. And what is the year of this publication?
1969.
All right. And if you go to the summary, you know what, Dr. Plotkin, let me May I?
Oh, yes.
Yes. And does it say there that Dr. Plotkin is a recipient of an award from SmithKline? Is that a predecessor to GSK?
Yes, it is,
Okay.
yes.
And French Inc., Philadelphia, for research on rubella vaccine, correct?
Yes. Unfortunately, that was not the vaccine that eventuated. In other words, the RA-273 was not really the product of any GSK funding.
I'm highlighting on this one. I'm just going to put it on the right one. So does that refresh your recollection now of maybe what was an earlier time that you received funding from pharmaceutical companies towards development related to a vaccine?
Yes,
Okay.
I did have some funding from GSK, but they had their own candidate rubella vaccine.
Dr. Plotkin, I'm going to hand you what is marked as Plaintiff's Exhibit 8.
Ms. Newsma, did you receive that Exhibit 8?
I'm sure I will.
It might take a second. It's Dr. Plotkin's curriculum vitae. So it's a
Oh, I've got a copy of that already.
Thank you.
This is your CV, correct, Dr. Plotkin?
Yes,
Did you update the CV recently?
I think it was updated last year, but I'm not sure exactly. It probably doesn't have every last publication.
On the first page, in the top right corner, do you see the date?
June 2017.
Was that when it was last updated?
Yes.
Okay. If you go to the end, I saw that you went. There are some articles here that were published in 2017 in which you're an author.
Yes.
I think I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 articles, correct?
I guess.
Okay, some of these were published within the last few months.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of them were published in December, November, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this has been updated very recently, correct?
Well, June 2017.
The articles, if you go to Article 794, Rodriguez, Pinto.
Yeah.
Do you know what month of the year that was published?
No.
Okay. If I told you it was published after June, would that?
No, I guess my secretary must have added it.
Okay. When's the last time you reviewed this CV?
Probably in June 2017.
Okay. You provided this CV to the attorney for the defendant in this case?
Yes.
Okay. It's quite a hefty CV, Dr. Plotkin. It's over 200 pages. I see there's 794 articles in it, which you were the author, correct?
Yes.
It's a lot of articles. I see a lot of honors, including Who's Who in America since 1978.
Mm-hmm.
Got a number of faculty appointments. at a number of universities I see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Any of faculty appointments missing from this list?
I don't think so.
Okay. I also see that there's you have a professor emeritus position at University of Pennsylvania in Worcester. Do you teach any courses there?
Yes,
Do you continue to teach any courses?
yes.
What do you teach there?
Participate in the vaccine course at the university and essentially give advice to Wistar.
And for the university, did you teach a course last semester?
Yes,
Have you been doing that every year for
pretty
the last
much, yes.
few years? What's the name of the course?
Vaccines, I don't remember the exact name, but it's essentially a course in vaccines.
How many days a week does the class meet?
Oh, 2 days a week.
I see you have a number of hospital and administrative appointments. 1, 2, 3. You have 6 of them, all right? It looks like they're all at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and then Department of Pediatrics. Any of your hospital administrative appointments missing from this list, Dr. Plotkin?
No, I don't think so. I do have an appointment at Johns Hopkins, but yeah,
And what is that?
I'm an adjunct professor.
Since when?
Gosh, I think sometime in the 2000s.
I see you have positions in industry listed, correct?
Yes,
I see 2 of them. I see one is from 1991 to 1997, the medical and scientific director at Sanofi,
yes,
right? And 1997-2009, executive advisor to the CEO of Sanofi, correct?
correct.
Okay. But as discussed earlier, since 2009, you've also worked for Sanofi, correct?
I have, yes,
And you work for Merck
yes,
and Glaxo
Yes.
and Pfizer.
yes.
How come those aren't listed here, Dr. Plotkin?
Well, they are consultancies. They're not official appointments. I don't have a let's say a title at Merck. I'm simply a consultant to them, and so it's not in my CV.
So in providing this CV to defendant's counsel, you didn't think disclosing your affiliations with the very companies whose product you're saying Faith should received, who her pediatrician purchased and provide to her, was necessary to disclose?
The CV.
Strike the question. Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Are you willing to update your CV to disclose all of the connections you have with the big 4 pharmaceutical companies?
Yes, of course. The CV is
Okay.
it's created not for for legal purposes. This is created to inform people who want to know about my papers and my appointments at various universities.
You provided this to defendant's counsel, correct?
Yes,
To show your experience as relevant to being an expert witness in this case, correct?
to show my experience as in the field of vaccines. Yes,
What is Dynavax Technologies?
Dynavax is a company that is working on adjuvantation of vaccines and has recently licensed a hepatitis B vaccine that is more immunogenic than the current vaccines.
Okay. This is a for-profit company,
Yes,
right? And it's involved in the development of vaccines, right?
yes,
You're on the board of directors of this company, correct?
correct.
Okay. That affiliation is not disclosed on the CV, correct?
It's not on the CV,
Okay.
no.
What is VBI vaccines?
Variations Bio,
Okay, and what is that?
that's a biotech developing vaccines.
Okay. And this is a for-profit company as well, correct?
Yes,
And you are also on the board of directors of this company, right?
yes.
And that affiliation is not disclosed in your CV, correct?
It is not in my CV, no.
Okay. What is MyMedics?
MyMedics is a biotech in Europe. They've actually, I haven't done anything for them in at least a year now, but I think I'm still officially on their board.
You're chairman of their scientific advisory board, correct?
As I said, I haven't done anything for them for at least a year, so if that is correct, that's sort of
Okay.
an old thing.
But they're a for-profit company?
Yes,
And how long were you on their board?
a couple of years, I don't remember
Okay.
exactly.
But that affiliation is not on your CV, correct?
No.
Dynavax Technologies, what have you done for them?
Dynavax, I've been on their board.
Okay. You attend the board meetings?
Not recently, but yes, in the past.
Have you advocated on their behalf?
Yes.
Have you done that in any government meetings, for
Yes.
example,
Yes.
to seek licensure of the vaccine?
Yes. And it was just licensed.
Okay. And so you were advocating as a board member of a technology company to get licensure of a new vaccine, correct?
Yes.
We have 5 minutes left on the disc.
Inovio Biomedical Corp. What's that?
That's a biotech that's developing vaccines based on DNA.
And is this a for-profit company?
Yes.
And what is your affiliation with the company?
I'm on their board.
Okay. And was that affiliation disclosed on your CV?
No.
Okay. What's CureVac AG?
It's also a biotech.
Okay. Is it a for-profit company?
Yes.
Is it involved in the development of vaccines?
Yes.
What's your affiliation with that company?
I'm on their board.
Okay. Is that affiliation disclosed on your CV?
No.
Okay. What is SYN, SYN vaccine?
Actually, I'm not sure about that name, but as I recall, it's a company trying to develop synthetic vaccines.
What's your affiliation with that company?
Actually, I don't recall that. I've certainly helped them, but I don't recall that I have a board position. Or whether I'm officially on the board or not. I haven't had contact with them for some time.
What is GeoVax Labs?
It's also a biotech.
Okay. Is it a for-profit company?
Yes,
Is it involved in the development of vaccines?
yes.
What's your affiliation with that company?
I've been an advisor, and I think I'm officially on their board. They're trying to develop a vaccine against HIV.
Was this affiliation disclosed on your CV? No, right?
No,
Okay.
I don't have my consultancies on my CV.
You're on the board of these companies, correct?
Yes,
Okay. What is Glycovaccine AG? That's GLYCO, then capital VAXYN AG.
it was a biotech in Europe.
Okay. Is it a for-profit company?
It was,
Okay. Was it involved in the development of vaccines?
yes,
Were you on the board of this company as well?
yes,
Okay. Is that disclosed in your CV?
no.
What is Adjuvance Technologies? That's ADJUVANCE Technologies.
It's a company trying to develop adjuvants for vaccines.
Okay. Is it a for-profit company?
Yes,
Okay. You're on the board of this company as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that affiliation isn't disclosed in your CV either, right?
No.
What is Bionet Asia?
A company developing a new pertussis vaccine.
This is a for-profit company as well?
Yes.
Okay. And you're on the board of this company as well?
Yes.
That affiliation also wasn't disclosed in your CV, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What's Abcombi? That's ABCOMBI Biosciences.
I haven't heard from them in a long time, and actually, I'm not even sure. I mean, I had an interview with the founder once. Whether he listed me as a board member, I don't know. I haven't heard from him in a long time.
It's a for-profit company?
I really have no idea. I assume it is, but I don't know.
Okay. And I should say that I'm spelling them out for the benefit of the court reporter. I assume you know the spelling. I'm just doing it for the benefit of the court reporter. What's Hookipia Biotech? That's
Hookipia.
thank you.
Yeah.
Hookipia.
Yeah,
Biotech.
it's a European biotech.
Okay, is it a for-profit company?
Yes.
All right, and it's involved in the development of vaccines.
Yes, hopefully.
And you're also on the board of this company.
Yes.
Okay, and that affiliation also wasn't disclosed in your CV, right?
No.
Okay. You mentioned one of the companies was in the process of developing trying to develop a new pertussis vaccine. Which company was that again?
Bionet.
Thank you. Why are they trying to develop a new pertussis vaccine?
Because a problem with current acellular vaccines is that although they are protective, the protection doesn't last as long as we would like. And Bionet has developed a component of pertussis vaccine that should give longer lasting responses.
How long does the current immunity last from the current acellular pertussis vaccine?
Well, it lasts for probably on the order of 5 years, but the efficacy diminishes after 2 years or so, and the result is that there have been more pertussis in adolescents than we would like.
So when you say after 5 years, the immunity's gone, in 2 years, the efficacy, do you mean after the, how many dose, the 4 or 5 dose DTaP series?
Well, I should go into some detail. The first
30 seconds.
the first 3 doses are given.
You know what? I apologize.
Yeah, okay.
It's about to run out, and
Yeah.
I don't want to give the
All right.
videographer a hard time.
This ends disc 1 of the deposition of Dr. Stanley Plotkin. We're going off the record. The time is 10:32.
I apologize for cutting off.
This is the beginning of tape number 2 of the deposition of Dr. Stanley Plotkin. We are on the record. The time is 10:42.
Okay. Thank you. Apologies again for cutting off your answer to the last question. The tape needed to be changed. If you could kindly read back the last question to give Dr. Plotkin an opportunity to respond.
Question, so when you say after 5 years immunity is gone, in 2 years efficacy, do you mean after the 4 or 5 dose DTaP series? Answer, I should go into some detail. The first answer, the first 3 doses are given you know what, I apologize. It's about to run out.
So, pertussis vaccine is given in 3 doses in infancy, and is quite protective during the the childhood or infancy years. Then there's a booster dose given before school entry, and that results in protection pretty